Is 5:17, and I'd like to call our board meeting for August 9th to order. I'll start with our tribute. In partnership with tribes who called Phoenix their home first, we acknowledge and respect the land our schools are built on. We commit to being a strong partner with any and all tribal nations who entrust their children to our schools. We are grateful and honored to be partners. Ms. Miriam, may we please have a roll call for attendance?
Carmen Trujillo,
Here.
Jessica Bueno,
Here.
Reggie Carrillo,
Here.
Alicia Vink,
Here.
Laura Diaz.
Thank you very much. With four board members here, we do have a quorum and can proceed. Let's move on to our Pledge of Allegiance with Dr. Gonzalez.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Good evening. Welcome, everyone. We're going to move on to our adoption of the agenda. Do we have any recommendations for the agenda, Dr. Davila Hagigat?
I believe we keep it as it stands.
Perfect. Do we have a motion to approve our agenda as presented?
And Jessica Bueno, so moved. Alicia Vinco, second.
Thank you very much. May I please have a roll call vote, Ms. Miriam?
Carmen Trujillo.
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
Alicia Vink.
Aye.
With that, our motion passes. Thank you very much. And we will move on to awards, recognition, and announcements.
We have a couple of celebrations, and do I get an opportunity to turn it over to you? I think we're going to bounce it back to you.
Yes, and
so
you're
that
right.
you
I
can
do have the
share
first
those.
one. My connection went out on my laptop, so I was literally just going off my paper. My apologies. So our first one is that Phoenix #1, our district here, was host to a valley-wide ALICE training, which stands for Alert, Lockdown, Inform, Counter, Evacuate. ALICE is a national safety preparedness training to better equip organizations on how to help keep students and staff safe from intruders and other potential dangers. City of Phoenix Mayor Gallego, Councilwoman Ann O'Brien, the United Phoenix Firefighters Local 493, and Navigate 360 held a press conference at Emerson Court promoting the mock incident training.
Teachers at Emerson School were surprised with a donation of school supplies for every classroom, compliments of Courtesy Automotive Group. Teachers were thrilled to receive pencil boxes, markers, whiteboards, and more to assist with teaching and learning in the classroom. Thank you, Courtesy Automotive, for providing these instructional supplies to Emerson teachers and for your support for the community.
This summer, our Indian education students from across the district participated in summer enrichment activities, including art, dance, science, and more. The Desert Botanical Garden brought Penny the tortoise to help the students create Arizona art and learn more about her habitat. The Be Kind project facilitated dance movements by using positive language to help build character. Students experimented with the Arizona Science Center solar science and chemistries to learn about the scientific method. Most importantly, visitors from tribes across North America shared their history and tradition. Students learned about basket weaving styles from the Wichita Indians, watched traditional dance, and heard storytelling from the Cree tribe, and listened to music on the guitar and flute from the Navajo and Lakota tribes. What wonderful experiences we had together.
Phoenix #1 kicked off the new school year with our all-employee back-to-school celebration on Monday, August 1st. Nearly 1,000 employees gathered at the iconic Celebrity Theater as we prepared to welcome our students and families. And this was the first opportunity for staff to meet and hear from our new superintendent, Dr. Hagikat. We are excited for the 2022-2023 school year.
Nice, nice. Thank you, thank you. Our fifth one is that all of our schools held Meet the Teacher events prior to the start of school last week. Students and families had the opportunity to meet their teachers and principals and get acquainted with their schools prior to the first day of classes. We all hope that went well. I've heard nothing but great things, so thank you very much.
The first day of school was Wednesday, August 3rd, and our staff was thrilled to welcome students across the district. It was so nice seeing our students back in our classrooms, and we look forward to a great school year.
The Phoenix One Foundation awarded a grant to the district to provide every new teacher with a $100 gift card to Lakeshore Learning. Our new teachers appreciated receiving these cards, which will be put to good use as they prepare their classrooms. A special thanks to Nadine Gafonia, coordinator of federal programs, for writing the grant on behalf of all of our new teachers. Thank you, Nadine.
The Coronado Neighborhood Association, Luana's Coffee Trailer, and Coronado community members hosted a welcome back to school free coffee at the Coronado Community Garden on the backside of Emerson School. Parents, staff, bus drivers, and even the maintenance crew stopped by for a delicious cup of coffee. A special thanks to the Coronado community for their back to school treats on the first day of school.
And our final celebration, 2 local hairstylists donated their services and provided free haircuts to Whittier students at the school's Meet the Teacher Night. 16 students received haircuts thanks to stylists Bridget Nicholson and Esperanza Rios. By the way, Esperanza is a former Whittier Wildcat, and she was so excited to hear she was returning to her elementary school to give back to the Whittier students and families. All right, thank you. With that, we'll move on to our superintendent's report. Do we have anything this evening?
Thank you, President Trujillo, Vice President Bueno, board members. I wanted to expand on a couple of the areas that were shared, beginning with our safety piece with Alice. We were able to have 3 of our employees attend. And with that knowledge, we will have the opportunity to share in the next couple of weeks with our administrators. We want to make sure that we have the latest strategies to enhance in this area, since it's very key for us to continue to keep our schools safe so that our students and adults continue to grow and learn. Also, I wanted to share about the kickoff that we had, the back to school celebration. It was so great for me to be with all of our staff that had an opportunity to attend. And I was able to share my vision, which really aligns with making connections. And in this case, it's building those lasting relationships. And so we look forward to really seeing this in action in our classrooms. As you shared with me, the teacher, our staff really did an amazing job planning and preparing for our students and their families to show up to school. And so we really had a really smooth start to our school year. And last but not least, the first 3 days of school, I had the opportunity to visit all the schools where we were welcoming our students. And in doing so, I got to see some of what was prepared as part of community building and starting our rigor from even day 1. And so these were critical days, and I want to make sure that I get an opportunity to thank our cabinet as well as our curriculum and instruction team who were out there supporting our schools to make sure that things were going smoothly. Also, a big shout out to our principals, instructional enrichment and intervention specialists, our IEIS, and the staff for planning and preparing for the student arrival. I enjoyed seeing mostly smiling faces from our scholars. There was a little bit of nerves out there, and all of our adults were smiling and supporting our students as they became used to the routines and expectations. What a joy to have the heart of our district back, our students. Thank you.
Thank you very much. With that, we'll move on to item C1 for our board reports. And I'll go first briefly. Wanted to echo the sentiments about the Alice training. That was a really nice phone call to get and share contact information. And just to see it all come together so quickly was really, really great. So I wanted to definitely thank Ms. Linda Jeffries and our administration for really pulling all resources together and making that possible for teachers across the state. And I'm looking forward to seeing where this kind of networking can help out our district and our teachers in the future. So thank you for that. And secondly, I had a good conversation with a parent who definitely conveyed some really nice, kind words about a teacher. And it was regarding new school, that starting a new school. The student was transitioning from our I Academy to becoming a Garfield Grizzly. And the student received a handwritten letter of, you know, good wishes and things going forward. So while this wasn't out of his expertise, I guess, and characteristics, the student was really surprised, and it did help him transition back into in-person teaching. And I just wanted to really recognize that behavior, because it's those small individuality type of, I don't know, experiences that really help our kids feel valid and human and respected. So those are the only two I've got this evening. Thank you.
Yes, I would also like to share our the sentiments expressed by Dr. Davila Hagiga on our employee back to school celebration. It was a great time for us to unite and really get ready for this next school year. So thank you, Ms. Jeffries, for getting all that together, and everybody that attended, all the staff that attended. And I want to reiterate my message at the celebration that our teachers are really helping our students feel welcomed back into the classroom. And I just express so much gratitude to our teachers as they continue to cultivate this environment of learning and safety. So again, thank you to our teachers, and overall, thank you so much to our staff that is working very hard to make sure that this school year is going to be super successful and welcoming. And it's just a very exciting time here for our district. And so thank you for everybody's support and grace during these times.
I'll go.
Yay, thanks.
For my board reports, I'm just echoing what President Trujillo said about the Alice training. It was awesome to see how quickly that event got together, or just to be able to host that event. But more so, again, as a reminder to introduce important stakeholders in the city, like the Phoenix Sun Sports Foundation that was present, that our school district is here, that we are this district, this public school is the backbone of the community, and it's important that they support us. So it was great to see our cabinet members as part of that training, but also great to for them to meet our new superintendent, for her to meet our Phoenix mayor too, Mayor Gallego, and just to see our new superintendent, Dr. Davila Hagiga, in action, making connections, especially with people who have the financial resources to support our community. And then in addition, and then thank you, Ms. Jeffries, for putting that together, and everyone else who worked to hold that training too here at Emerson Court. And then also big thank you to everyone who was part of the planning for the employee back to school celebration at Celebrity Theater. It was my first time there, so I got to hear a lot of nostalgic stories from people. And then thank you to them for hosting us. And it was a great event to launch us into this year, for them to meet our new superintendent and hear her story of public education, and just see a small component of why we brought her to our district, and how fortunate we are to have her, for her to see how empowering educators can be. And then the other thing, my update is, it was wonderful to see. I always love to go see the bus depot. Thank you, Armando, for having us. It was a tour. I wasn't part of the tour, but I've done the tour. I was part of the intro and Q&A. So it was very refreshing, and also eye-opening just to hear. It was a Q&A too, to hear the concerns of our staff that are the backbone of our community, that are out in our community, literally driving around this city, carrying our most precious cargo, our students, back and forth to their school, and just hear what they thought about stuff that we should be implementing, and hear their concerns about safety too, safety for this school year, especially. And then also just a reminder, we have ESPA members there too, but just a reminder to join your local union, join your local teachers association, and especially ESPA if you're listening to this, so that we understand the needs of the collective too. So thank you to those ESPA members that I met. And then last thing, just going with the bus depot, they updated us with so much wonderful information. Thank you. We got to hear about the focus on environmental sustainability and transitioning to electric bus vehicles. So I don't have much updates about that, but I know that's where we're headed, and we're looking into that. So and just pushing our school district to be more sustainable. It was great to just visit and then hear about our Department of Transportation and what they're doing, because transportation is one of the biggest carbon output, has one of the biggest carbon footprints. And so I'm glad that they are focused on this for our district and for our students. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Carrillo. I always enjoy hearing your board reports. I really do. With that, we will move on to item D1, our community communications. This will be the time for public comment. Members of the board may not discuss items that are not specifically on the agenda, so we will not be able to comment. But we do thank you for coming to share with us this evening, and are able to direct staff to looking into any concerns mentioned. Time limit will be 3 minutes. And I believe Miss Miriam will let us know how many and who will go first.
We have 7 comments, 6 are in person and 1 in writing.
Okay,
First person, Mr. Jason Parsons on IA training.
thank you. Welcome.
Madam President, board members, superintendent, this isn't a lot of time, but bottom line is that we have a lot of good stuff going on over at Emerson Elementary. Mr. Lodato, the principal, and Adam Lovelady, the master teacher over the autism program, are great. They're doing everything that they have the authority and resources to do to make the best program ever. But one of the things that we do need is more time for IA training. We tried to do that the day before school started on Tuesday, but we only got 45 minutes. Adam and I could literally do a 6-hour seminar if you would actually give us that much time. But in any case, it really does make a difference, because a lot of the IAs, basically their only knowledge really comes from them being parents, and there's so much about, not just operating in a professional capacity, but also about autism specifically, that isn't part of any parental book. And so it really is important, if we're going to run the most effective program possible, in order that the kids can progress. Some of them are able to progress out of the self-contained rooms into gen ed. Okay, and if we're going to increase the number of children who do that, and how long it takes for them to do that, then we need more IA training. And so I'd love to talk about this. When I have a chance to make a 2-hour speech, but yeah, so I consider myself a representative of my autism community, and so what we're doing is an alliance between educators and the autistic advocates who create the greatest program possible. But like I said, we need more opportunity to train the IAs. So thank you.
Next person, Myla Oliver, I'm peer. Also Adelaide Sheets.
Hello, my name is Adelaide Sheets and I am in 3rd grade. I go to Shaw Montessori and I'm here to talk about peer. So when I first learned that I would probably have to move schools if I didn't get into peer, I was actually pretty scared about moving schools because I made lots of friends and because it was near my house and my neighbor said that the kids were pretty rude and I didn't want to move schools because all the kids there are nice and they know how to accept people. Thank you. Hi, my name is Myla. I'm in 1st grade. I love going to school every morning, having friends, and going to recess. Oh. I go to peer after school. I have fun. I eat snacks. And I go to the library. And then I play in the gym. I love all my friends. I love to play with them at recess. We have fun. We play hide and seek. And I don't get to go to my grandma's house after. And I don't get to go to my grandma's house.
Next person is Mary Banquet regarding peer.
I typed it out so I wouldn't make mistakes. And also I'm fresh from the dentist, so bear with me. Hello, Governing Board, Superintendent Deborah Hagitat. My name is Mary Bankhead. I'm a parent of a 3rd grade student at Shaw Montessori. I'm a regular here at the Governing Board meeting, so I'm not here in person, then I'm at home watching. I'm not here just for my family. I'm here for the families that don't have the capability or capacity to be here in person. I'm here once again advocating for peer. I attended the June 30th Governing Board meeting where there was a peer presentation and I left beyond angry. Behind that anger was disappointment. There seems to be a disconnect between what is happening with peer and some of what was presented that night. Those discrepancies are listed below in an appendix, which I already shared with the community person over email, but I'm not gonna read them for the sake of time. Another disappointing factor was how ideas that have been presented since last year, as well as ideas the Governing Board shared that night, received a "those are possible options" response. It's not only insulting, but also infuriating as it appears that there has been little to no action taken on these possible solutions that students and their families so desperately need. Make no mistake, we are beyond grateful that our daughter got off the wait list for peer. But in fact, when I got the email from Ms. Claire, I cried tears of joy and I said, "Thank you, Jesus." Because it was cleared, our daughter's able to stay in PSD1. My husband and I can both still work full-time in our jobs, but our situation is not unique. The thing is, though, the peer wait list was cleared 1 week before the first day of school. We had researched different schools we're going to transfer to and selected which one our kid was going to go to until we got the email from Ms. Claire. The late clearing causes unnecessary stress and planning and is a direct correlation to some families leaving the district. Dr. Dabila Hagigat, I welcome you to PSD1, and I beg you to do something to make peer a stable, reliable, and consistent resource for PSD1 families. Governing Board, I implore you to put PEER back on the agenda at every meeting in order to provide the community regular updates as to what measures are being taken to either fix systemic issues that cause PEER wait lists and what specifically is being done to fix PEER. Thank you for your time.
Next person, Marnie Burris on the 2023 legislative budget.
I definitely came prepared. I didn't just write this now. Hi, good evening, Dr. Hagigat, Madam President and Governing Board members. My name is Marnie Burris, and I am the proud Phoenix Elementary Classroom Teacher Association President. I'm also a proud Emerson Eagle, but most proudly, I am a teacher who looped up to 4th grade with the greatest group of students I have ever had the privilege of teaching. Before I begin, I want to take a moment to welcome Dr. Hagigat to Phoenix L. Although she's just begun her time in the district, she's already made quite an impression. When you work in public education, you often find yourself answering the question, how do you keep going? And my answer is simple. I believe that where there are educators, there is joy. Dr. Hagigat, from your attending the PECTA New Hire event and enthusiastically celebrating the collaborative wins between the union and the district, to stopping by my classroom to meet with me in person when at most I expected just a phone call or an emailed response, really shows me and tells me that you have that educator's joy, and it is so welcomed here. My comment today centers around the historic victory for public education funding secured in part by PECTA, local associations across the state, and the Arizona Education Association. On June 25th, we witnessed at the Arizona State Legislature the power of individuals standing together in the 110-degree heat of the day and into the early hours of the next morning when the bipartisan budget was passed. The new allocation of funds resulted in $525 million being added to the base funding for public education and equates to a total 8.8% increase in education dollars for the state. Phoenix Elementary School District is expected to receive $2.9 million as a result of this action. When the Meet and Confer team wrapped back in April, it was with the understanding that should additional monies become available, we would return to the bargaining table and try to get those funds into the paychecks of both certified and classified PESD employees. I'm here tonight to ask for the continued collaboration between the district and PECTA, and more specifically, to ask that we begin discussions as soon as possible. Inflation has never been higher, and the cost of living is becoming unmanageable for many of the incredible humans I am fortunate enough to call colleagues in the district. I'm going to go off script a little bit here and just say that, like, my first couple of weeks as PECTA president have been answering phone calls from folks that I think are the greatest people, telling me they don't know if they can continue teaching because of this. Okay. Anyway, we have answered the call to teach the next generation, securing our students a bright future, and I'm trying not to cry. I'm so emotional. As a union, we seek to ensure that as a union, we seek to ensure the best working conditions possible, and through doing that, we enhance our student learning conditions. Thank you. Have a great rest of your night.
Next person, Haley Hunneman on the legislative budget.
Dear Superintendent Hagigat, President Trujillo, and members of the board, my name is Haley Honeman, and I am fortunate to be the drama teacher at the Herrera Elementary School and a proud member of PECTA. I hope that you're having a wonderful start to the 2022-2023 school year. I know that it has given me so much joy to see the familiar faces of students and families over the last week. As a member of the Arizona Education Association, I want to recognize the hard work of organizers who fought for the passage of the educator's budget. When the final budget was signed into law by Governor Ducey on June 28th, 2022, it included an additional $2.9 million for the Phoenix Elementary School District. This was due to the hard work of many who want to see our public school system rise to its potential to give our children the education that they deserve. I want to bring to the board's attention that many other districts have already negotiated to use this funding to increase stagnant salaries during a time of teacher and instructional assistant shortages. Just a couple of these districts include Osborne, which gave an additional 7% raise after the news of the new budget, and Dysart, which gave certified teachers 4% on top of an already bargained 1% raise. I'd love to see the funding in our districts go to retain the hardworking, certified, and classified staff who give so much love to our children every day. Thank you for your time.
The last community is a written one. It's from Matt Jameson. Hello, I am writing this letter today to speak about the importance of peer and its impact on our schools and lives of our students. I'm a parent of a child that attends Shaw Montessori School, and my son Elliot had been on the peer waitlist, but thankfully was added to the group of students that at the 11th hour was able to join his classmates in peer. While we are beyond relieved he was able to come off the waitlist and actually attend peer at his school, it is still very concerning that more importance has not been placed on peer in the realm of the governing board. Before we knew our son would be able to attend peer, we were bracing for what would have been a problematic pickup during our work hours. Finding out at the last minute that we could still be a part of peer was a relief, but it left the question of why did it have to happen like this? How is it that a district that has found ways to take care of its own struggles, to take care for the very children it exists to serve? It would mean the world if we as parents could have one thing off our plate and knowing that a reliable and consistent year-to-year program would exist for our children. Taking the guesswork out of the kind of care our children need would be of immeasurable service to us and all of the other families dependent on peer. I believe the greatest starting point in figuring out a solution is to start with the easiest step, keep peer as a talking point. We ask that the PSD1 governing board put peer back on the agenda at every meeting to provide the PSD1 community regular updates as to what specifically is being done to address the systematic issues that create peer waitlists and what is being done to fix peer in general. Thank you for your time and understanding. And those are all the comments for today.
Thank you very much, Miss Miriam. And thank you to everyone who took the time to address the board. We do value your words. We do value your time, and we're grateful to have you as part of our community. With that, we're going to move on to our consent agenda, item E1. Our consent agenda lists several items for approval by the board in a single motion. Items listed under the consent agenda have gone through the superintendent's cabinet review and recommendation, and the governing board has participated in that review as well. So with that, do we have a motion to approve our consent agenda?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you.
Alicia Vinca, second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? Hearing none, may we please have a roll call vote to approve our consent agenda, Ms. Miriam?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
Alicia Vink.
Aye.
Thank you very much. With that, our motion does pass, and we will move on to item F1 to receive and discuss a presentation on our student achievement with Dr. Gonzalez, I hope. Good evening.
Good evening, Madam President, members of the board, Superintendent Davila Hagigat, and our viewing public, as well as our listening public and our colleagues in the audience. I'm going to have Dr. Lloyd come up to share this presentation with me. We're tag teaming tonight because he's going to talk about our data, and I'm going to talk about some of the strategies that we're implementing to support the work that is happening to change some of the outcomes that we're going to present today. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Lloyd, who's done a phenomenal job putting all of this together.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez. Members of the board, Dr. Davila Hagigat, thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here with you. I do want to acknowledge the amazing people that I work with here in the district. I work very closely with our IIS group. They are a hardworking group. They are also the school test coordinators at their sites. And so they have a big job with doing assessments and helping me. And then also, obviously, all the teachers who are our test administrators, and they're in the thick of it right now as we're starting our diagnostic assessments, as well as our universal literacy screeners. Also like to recognize Dr. Gonzalez. She has been amazing to work with, especially with looking at data with me and understanding the ways that these data need to be used to help drive our district forward. I also want to recognize, I was very grateful. One of the things that Dr. Gonzalez has done, an initiative she's brought on, is to have each member of our curriculum team be a site support person. So I have been assigned to Garfield, Heard, and Kenilworth, and it's been awesome. This is the first time I've gotten to go to the back to school night. I was invited to all three. I made it to two, and it's very rewarding to be there and to be a part of those communities. And I'm grateful for that community building that's going on. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started with our presentation tonight. Of course, what we're doing here is all around our strategic goal to ensure every student is successful. And going back to this equity statement, really my job is centered around that second paragraph there, right? To make sure that we have our sources of data that really include the information that we need to know our students, to meet their needs, and to personalize their learning, and also to help us use the most effective programs and use our resources effectively. So I'm excited to be here tonight with you to show what we're doing. So we're going to start tonight with our data from our latest round of state assessments. So they've changed the name on us again. I think this is the fourth time in 5 years. So it's now called Arizona's Academic Standards Assessment. This is the end of year spring assessment that's given in April to all students across the state in grades 3 through 8, except for students who, because of an individualized education plan, may have an alternate assessment that they take. But that has to be less than 1% of our district that do that. So I'm going to present tonight some of the different aggregates. We're going to start big and go smaller, and try and make sure that you understand all of the terms as we go through it. If there are any terms that you're unfamiliar with, feel free to stop me and ask. Otherwise, I'll stop for questions after we talk about the state data and before we transition to talking about our diagnostic data. So here you see our first set of illustrations. These are two circle graphs that show how we did district-wide in terms of our ELA and math performance. ELA is on the left, math is on the right. The green and the blue indicate the percent of students who are passing or who passed the end of year standards-based assessment, the ASA. So on the left, you can see that we had a sum of 29% of our students. We could say we're proficient on grade level standards at the end of our 21-22 school year. The yellow is partially proficient, indicating that they did show some proficiency, but not enough yet to be considered proficient. And then our red are students who are minimally proficient, or those who are still farther away from being proficient and need some additional support to be on grade level. In our math side, you can see the percent of students in the green and the blue is 20%, which is smaller than our those who are passing on our ELA. That's consistent with trends we see statewide. And we saw statewide a big dip in the 2021 data. And so coming back from that dip for our district has been harder, for the state has been harder, not to excuse it, but just to give context to what's happened. And I will give a little bit more context to our data, moving on to this slide. Before we get into this, one of the things to recognize in 2020 and 2021, we had our students in online remote learning for around 75% of the year. And then for the last 25%, we still had 40% of those students who were still completely remote. They did have to come in for testing, but other than that, they were completely remote. And so we saw that affect our test scores last year tremendously. This year, we only had around 3% of our students chose to stay online and be a part of our Phoenix Eye Academy. The rest, the 97%, were in person at our schools. And so we do see that there's been a big change for our school district, and that's what this is showing here. This isn't the actual passing rates, but the change between where we were last year in our passing rates and where we are this year. So these two graphs are showing, for example, on the left hand again is ELA, that our district changed 8 or 14% in the positive direction. So we had 14% more of our students in third grade who passed ELA than the previous year. The state is next to it, showing that statewide, only 6% more of students from the 2021 school year to the 22 school year passed. And so the difference column you see there is that we as a district, we improved 8% more than the state did. So what that indicates to us is that we have a good trajectory for our district in terms of outpacing the state. We want to keep a trajectory right like that. What this doesn't show is the actual percentages. We are still below the state averages, but I, at this point, am very focused on that rate. If we can continue to improve 8% more than the state each year, and eventually we will be far above that average and be what we've discussed, right, which is being a national exemplar of education for our state.
I have a real quick question.
Yeah.
Do you, off the top of your head, know like what is the Title I's school like range of like improvement?
Oh, that's a good question. So at this point, and yeah, to give a little bit more context, at this point, we do not have any other districts' data. So the state will not release any other districts' data until I believe it's end of September. So in October, we'll have a public file where we can make those comparisons. And I can give you those data then. That's also when we'll get September, October is when we will get accountability letter grades, and we'll know more how these data reflect in the points that we received for accountability.
Yeah, thank you. So if I can just request that we get that information around that time frame.
Okay.
Thank you.
We'll definitely do that. Everybody's waiting for it. So again, you can see on the math side, although our math did not improve, you're not going to see the same improvement in the percentages. You will see that compared to the state, we did improve in several grade levels, even more. And part of that, again, giving some context, we had 90% of our students in 2021 take the test. This last year, 2022, we had 99%. The state's average was more around 86% last year. They haven't released numbers for this year, but I know last year they were missing around, they said 10,000 students per grade level, which affects the averages across the state quite a bit. So again, those are important pieces to take into context. Did you want to share anything? Good. All right. Any other questions? All right. So moving on. Okay, so this slide goes now to breaking things down by school. And we can see again, if we look first at our ELA on the left hand, that we had a lot of schools that rebounded to near pre-pandemic passing rates. And the reason why 2019 is significant is that was our highest year out of the last 6 years. That was our highest year for passing for ELA, and I believe for math as well. And so making a comparison to that year helps us understand how far we are away from where we have been historically. So we do see there's schools such as Hurd, Dunbar, Edison, Emerson, who improved 8% or 10% or better. And then we also have a few schools, Capital, Garfield, and Shaw, that even exceeded their 2019 ELA passing rate. So those are all good signs of our trajectory and where we're going with our ELA. With math, again, we don't see the same bounce back, even though We did grow 10%, which 10% is a pretty good increase from year to year for your passing rate. And we did see that increase, whereas the state's percent went from 31% in 2021 for math to 33. We went up a full 10 points. And all of our schools in math were able to increase their passing rate from the 2021 year. But again, none of them made it to where they were in 2019. And we know that's an area of focus, an area of need for our students. So here we're breaking this down. I wanted to let member Bueno know. I remembered from last time wanting to see the different levels of proficiency or performance levels. So this, I included this slide specifically so we could speak to where we are with students who fell in that minimally proficient category. And the black line there is for that reason. In 2019, our district average of students who are minimally proficient across the district was 49%. So that line indicates where we were in 2019. And you can see that a lot of our red lines are at or around there. I know some are still definitely above, but we are getting closer to those rates for ELA. Obviously, that's not where you want to be. So again, speaking to one of our areas of need, we need our red, or our students who perform at a minimally proficient level, to be much lower than 50%. And obviously we want to increase our students who are passing to above 50%. So that is something, that's one of the things that we look at each year to help us as well. One of the important reasons why you want to look at our minimally proficient as well is because those students are the ones that can move the most. And oftentimes when we are able to help students who need the most support, other students who need similar supports will also be able to move. So it's definitely an area of focus. Trying to look at my notes, see if there are other points. One moment. So yeah, we are, and one of the things that we are paying attention to are those schools that are still up above and in, 60% of their students are minimally proficient, nearly 2/3. Those are schools that we are focusing on and trying to support.
And really quickly, I'll share some of the examples of the supports that we've added to those schools that are still showing higher levels of minimally proficient. You'll remember we have learning acceleration specialists that are working with our campuses, as well as our master teachers working with multi-age team teaching classrooms. Those are some of the examples of side-by-side teacher support, giving teachers some teacher strategies so that they can see ways that we accelerate learning, not only for those minimally proficient students, but for all students. Looking at the ways in which we provide centers and grouping so that students are getting instruction that's tailored to their specific needs. This year, you're also going to see the use of common formative assessments that are given on a weekly basis throughout the instructional cycle so that we can track where are our students in particular standards and how do we help to tailor instruction to meet each student's needs on a week-by-week basis. So those are some new interventions that we're adding to our programming with our teachers.
Quick question. Do our teachers have the capacity to be doing weekly common formative assessments?
The common formative assessments are very quick. They're typically about 5 questions, and then those help to feed their planning. So it helps guide what they do in their planning to make sure that they're able to differentiate appropriately for their students. So they're no longer having to plan in the dark, if you will. They actually see what the students need and can tailor instruction through that process.
Okay.
And our teachers are an amazing group of people. When you walk into the classrooms and you see the spirit that they have, and you see the results that we got last year, I think we're going to continue to see outstanding gains.
Okay. And then the strategies that we're implementing in these schools, are these strategies similar to things that are already happening at like Magnet and Shaw?
Yes, so one of the strategies that Magnet uses in particular is the strategy of common formative assessments where they do a pre and a post test using that data to plan. They also design collectively anchor charts to put up to help students identify a strategy and then locate it when they're struggling. Those are strategies that Magnet has been using, including the team teaching and the team planning together. That's an important aspect to the theory of action that we shared earlier, that when teachers are able to plan together, they get better results in terms of being able to support students' individual needs, and their efficacy increases. That gives them more energy to sustain and to continue on. Shaw does a lot with the multi-age team teaching. And again, while they group their students based on student interests and student levels. And so it's a similar sort of process where students are moving up and down the grades based on what they need. In our traditional schools, non-Montessori schools, I should say, it's a similar process, but rather than having them go up and down grades and across classrooms, they're going in a smaller group of students. So with 30 students, you'll be able to create centers and groupings based on the needs of those 30 students. So if you can imagine 3 or 4 potential groups working collaboratively to meet those individual needs, driven by the data that we get from the common formative assessments.
Okay, and both of those things are being implemented for the first time, or mostly for the first time this year, or we did some of the Shaw stuff or the Magnet stuff last year and we're implementing them?
We dabbled with the Magnet stuff last year. Last year, we had a lot of interruptions due to quarantining. This year, we're more focused, and we also have the additional help of the master teachers to help that. So in those places where we have master teachers and learning acceleration specialists, that's where we're really honing in on those particular strategies. And we're always looking at other ways that we support all of our teachers to be able to bring these strategies to bear.
Okay, thank you.
I did want to share quickly one more thing about this. So when you look at the students who fall in that red minimally proficient category, one of the things that is helping us to know who those students are before we ever get to our state test is our Iready Diagnostic, because it helps tier our students for us to know our students who are 2 or more grade levels below, who most often are not going to be able to show any kind of proficiency with grade level standards. And so that's one of the things too that we're using, obviously, is our diagnostic gives us what are called prerequisite reports. So we know what skills they're going to need to be able to get to grade level. So we can focus and make sure that they have the foundational skills that they need. We also do a similar thing for reading, where we understand if they need phonics support. We have a lot of 4th through 8th grade students who still need phonics lessons and phonics support. And so that is the great thing that we're getting out of our own data and using a diagnostic that helps us understand and know where we're going to be. And we'll talk about that more in some later slides as well. So here's math. Again, you could probably clearly see the difference. I'll go back one more time and forward so you can see there's ELA and math. And you can see most of those red lines are still far above that 2019 line. And in 2019, actually, our math minimally proficient average was 47%, slightly lower than ELA. So math, again, had a big disruption because of things that happened during the pandemic. And we're still working a lot with trying to help students get back to being able to perform on grade level. So this is one of the areas, again, that we definitely will be a focus for us. Do you have any other to share with that? All right. So yeah, this is just looking at the data. You can see on average, we have 2/3 of our students in math that were minimally proficient. There's something that we will work on. All right, next slide. Okay, so now this slide is to help us answer a question about equity and how we're doing with serving different students when we break it down by race, ethnicity, and also by certain services that they receive. So you can see from looking at this that there are some discrepancies, and our goal with equity is that you don't see discrepancies based on race or based on different types of services and so forth. And so that is something we spent time this summer with our principals. We broke this down through several slides to help them see the contrast between how some of our white students did, for example, with passing rates versus other students. Also here you can see some differences definitely with the percent of students who fall in that minimally proficient category based on race, and especially by some of those service groups such as EL and ESS. We have nearly 9 out of 10 students who are English language learners or who receive exceptional student services who are minimally proficient. They're not able to show any proficiency with grade level standards. And that is something that we have to address. And that is one of the reasons we met with our principals as well during the summer, because as part of what's called the SIAP process, where they create an action plan for their school, they have to look at these data and say, okay, what am I going to do to support the fact that I had 0% of my students who receive exceptional education services or show any type of proficiency on grade level standards. So it's definitely something. Would you like to add anything to that? Okay, so this is ELA. So you do see that big discrepancy, and also just the fact that we only have less than 5% really of our students who are EL and ESS or receive those services who are passing at this point. And so it is an area where we can grow quite a bit. I did put the numbers there. So the numbers next to the percentages indicate the number of students. So you can kind of see, well, you can see how many students that's affecting.
Just for a follow-up, if I can just request on a board update, the grades. So I see that the demographics are by race, but I would like to see the grades that all those demographics fall into.
Okay, so a breakdown by race and grade.
Yes.
Okay.
And I'd like to see it broken down by school as well.
Okay, yeah, I have those.
And then can you talk more about the conversation, or maybe Dr. Gonzalez, with principals and what that sounded like and looked like? And
Do you want to look at the math first? Go ahead and look at math,
All right.
and then we'll talk about it.
Okay, math is pretty similar in terms of the trends that we see to ELA. We see our Black and Indian students and Hawaiian Islander, who's a very small population, but with nearly 2/3 of them in our minimally proficient category. And then also very different than the percent of students who you see in that proficient and highly proficient category. And then we see again, even more devastating numbers in terms of percents and number of students passing for students who receive English language and ESS services.
So in response to the question about the conversation this summer, we did what we called a gut punch. We showed the data so that you were forced to really look at what was happening. And this is all the more reason why being able to differentiate our instruction by student really is important. You also, in the conversation, we talked not only about what do we need to do, but how do we better include our families as partners in helping to understand what our students need. One of our principals very eloquently said, we're often providing services, but are they the services that our students want and our families need? Or are we just deciding for them what they want and need? And so how do we do a better job of involving our families and bringing that in? So some of the changes that you're seeing across the schools is the family engagement specialists are working upfront with families when they're coming in, surveying them, working with them to understand what their needs are and the ways that they know their child learns best. Some of on the first days of schools, family engagement specialists were working with families, bringing them into the media centers and sitting down with them and having these conversations over donuts and coffee and muffins. I was trying to remember muffins. So that's one aspect of it. But the other aspect of it is we have to implement our curriculum with fidelity. We can't have discrepancies between Magnet, who follows the curriculum with strong fidelity and is adhering to all of these protocols and standards that we know make a difference for learning, and have another school who says, well, we're not really going to do that here because we think it's more fun for kids to have When we look at scores and we look at this sort of discrepancy, we have to disrupt that. And so that was the conversation that we had around making sure that we are ensuring equity in terms of what students are able to access, and that we're also sensitive to the ways in which we present material to students. Are we making sure that our students feel welcomed and included into our classrooms? So another aspect of what we did is to develop, based on research from Dr. Zaretta Hammond, a protocol for when we go into the classrooms, what should we be seeing? And what we found is that we really need to see our students asking more questions, our students engaged in hands-on learning activities, our students being able to work collaboratively, and so that they come from communities where we all pitch in and we all work together. And then we bring them to school and we say, sit here and don't move and follow this page and work by yourself. We have to disrupt that kind of learning because we know that's not the most productive way for many students to learn. It works for some, and for those students for whom it does work, that's where that individualization is important. But because it doesn't work for most, we have to create different opportunities for that. So our walkthrough protocol looks at things like, when I go into the classroom, is the student engaged in rigorous conversations about their learning? Are they asking questions of themselves, of their peers, and of their teacher? Who's doing the most talking when you go into the classroom that's productive talk about learning? And who's learning in the classroom? The other thing we really want to start looking for is, are the students learning, but is the teacher learning also? And this is where those common formative assessments are so important, because when I'm looking at what my students know and are able to do, now I'm able to tailor instruction so that Alicia gets this and Carmen gets this and Jessica and Reggie both get this. I can tailor that instruction and see what works for my students so that the next day I come back with an even better plan based on what I saw them able to do this time. So these are the sorts of conversations we began having at our leadership summit, and Board President Trujillo was able to see that and to pay attention with us to some of the conversations that we were having. And they were honestly, they were tough conversations. There were people really, when they looked at the data in this way, they really had that visceral reaction of, this isn't okay, we've got to do something different. And I would say, and we have Principal Bernal in the audience, but I would say that the principals walked away saying, we can do better and we need to do better.
Thank you for sharing all that. I just did have a question about the role that the parent engagement specialist, you mentioned being that bridge of educating the parents. What support does the specialist have of educating the parents of what to look for, what are the questions to ask, and kind of, what's that open door look like?
And if I said they were educating the parents, I misspoke. They are actually working with the parents to understand from the parents' perspectives what works for their children. So we're gathering information from parents because we know that parents know their children best. And we know that a parent knows that if you push this child and you ask them questions in front of other people, they're going to shut down because it's intimidating to them. But if you come quietly to them and talk to them about something and you engage them in something that's interesting to them, my child will light up and be happy. So those are the sorts of conversations we started. In terms of the training that we're doing with our family engagement specialists, that's an ongoing process that we're working on. We're hoping to hire a new family engagement coordinator tomorrow. We have interviews and we have some very outstanding candidates. So we're very hopeful that we find somebody, but that will continue to be something that we focus on throughout. In addition, the family engagement specialists are involved in the trainings at the school sites. So they are listening to and partnering with our teachers as teachers are going through these conversations with their principals in their schools. In addition, Dr. Lloyd has presented each of the schools with student by student data that breaks down all of the different levels for the students so that you can see what was their progress from spring, winter, and fall. Or from fall, winter, and spring last year, so that we can see now, where do we begin with these students? And using the Iready Diagnostics is also really helping us to tailor and fine tune the groupings of our students.
And just a follow-up question is, that material provided in the student handbook about teaching the parents on how to examine their student and ask questions about, what are they doing in class, or the example that you previously provided?
That's not in the handbook, but that would be material that the schools would have available to share with families as they come in. And that's part of the family engagement materials that we're using.
I just want to share how excited I am about that protocol, because one thing when you look at these numbers and you look at how many students are minimally proficient, I think there can be the mistaken idea that these students are minimally proficient learners or thinkers, and that is not the case. They can all learn and think very well. And that's one of the points of having this type of a protocol, is to ask those questions. How are you doing at treating them and expecting them to be learners and thinkers? So I'm really excited that this is a protocol that we're using. I went through the training and gives me goosebumps to think about and to know that that's our direction. All right. So we're going to go to the Iready Diagnostic. Did you guys have any other questions about the state test scores before we move to this? Okay. So the Iready Diagnostic, again, another reason why I love this is because oftentimes we don't see students' strengths, and the Iready Diagnostic helps us identify what they do know, what they can do, and then also what their needs are. So even though you'll see some of the same colors and so forth, we get a lot of good data about what students can do and how to support them. So another quick thing, I want to make sure you understand that there's a difference between the red, yellow, and green here and what you just saw from the ASA. The ASA is just speaking to grade level standards. This diagnostic looks at where a student is in their skills based on specific domains in math and specific domains in reading across the entire spectrum. So a student could be, minimally proficient in reading in 7th grade. But then they could come and take the reading diagnostic, and they could show they're at a 6th grade level for their vocabulary and comprehension, but they're struggling potentially with some phonics or something, in that area. So that's why you see some differences. Also, so the colors here real quick, the red indicates that students placed overall at 2 or more grade levels below where they were at. So a 7th grader placed at a 5th grade level or below. The yellow indicates that they're 1 grade level below. So again, a 7th grader, they placed at a 6th grade level. They show that they had 6th grade skills. If they're green, that means they're a 7th grader showing that they could do 7th grade work. Now, whether or not they could do end of year type of work, right, which would maybe show them as proficient or highly proficient or not, that gets more nuanced, but it does show that they can at least perform on a 7th grade level. The reason why I say this is because we have a lot of confusion in our district that, oh, my student was green on Iready, so they should be proficient or highly proficient on the state test. And that doesn't always happen, because sometimes they may have just moved in to 7th grade on grade level proficient. So they're at the beginning of their 7th grade skills, and we're trying to make sure they get to the end of their 7th grade skills so that they can show proficient or highly proficient. So I just wanted to clarify those differences between the two. Any questions after me sharing that? It'd probably be nice to have like some visuals and so forth to share on that.
I
But-
think it's just important to notice too that the Iready is 1st through 8th grade too. And when we're looking at
Correct.
the last, their 3rd.
Correct.
8th
Yeah.
grade.
So
it's
yeah,
gonna be different.
the state test scores are only for 3rd through 8th, and this is first through 8th.
Yeah.
And in fact, this year, with meeting with the school test coordinators, they requested that we get kindergarten data in the fall. We are waiting until September. Iready recommends 4 to 6 weeks so that they can adjust, so they're ready, so they can do some practice, so they have access to Iready. They're already getting in and doing some lessons. And then when after they've had some time in school, they can take the diagnostic and not be overwhelmed and shut down as you imagine a kindergartner might be. So this again shows that we had some good movement, right? So in our reading on the left-hand side again, we moved about 19% and from the tier 3, those students who are 2 or more grade levels below, out of that tier. and we moved the same amount, 19%, into tier 1. So the students who are showing now that they're performing on grade level. So let me flip my page. And in math, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get to because I don't remember their percentages. In math, we had a 26% reduction out of that 2 or more grade levels below. Again, we had more, but we moved more out of that area. And that's important because we saw, obviously, we had some deficiencies in math on our state, but does indicate that we are working on our math. Our math is improving. We are moving students. They got so far behind that it's taking longer to help them get to grade level. Going to the next slide, we can see a breakdown by school. We're going to start again. I want to make sure to show both on grade as well as the 2 or more below. So we're going to start with on or above and show the differences. So the blue on the left hand, the blue bar is our fall, and spring is on the right hand. And you see increases, which is definitely what we want. We want more students on grade level at the end of the year. So we had 15% increases at Bethune, Capital, Dunbar, Emerson, Garfield, Hurd, Academy, Kenilworth, Lowell, Magnet, Shaw, and Whittier. So that's the majority of them were able to move 15%. And we talked about 10% on the state. 15% is great. We know we're moving our students at a good rate to that grade level. What we need here, again, is to have a majority of those students moving to grade level. You can see we're still below 30% at most schools who are on grade level with their reading, and that's grades 1 through 8. Moving on to 2+ below, here you see a reduction, and that's what we want. And at many schools, the reduction was 20% of the students who in the fall were 2 or more grade levels below, now moving up. And so that's what we want. We need our tiers to be inverted. We still, at the end of the year, had around 40% of our students in that 2 or more grade levels below. We need to invert our pyramid so that we have 40% of our students or more in on grade level, right? And 20% or less in this 2+ below category. And I apologize if I didn't say we're first looking at reading. So this was reading and this is reading. And then moving on to math. So math, again, you can see our blue bars for math are very low at the beginning of the year. Had very few students who were on grade level at the beginning of the year. So we had more movement in math, about 20% at several schools, 15 to 20% who moved to on grade level. So that was good movement for our math. But again, here you can see we still have many schools who have around that 40% mark of students on the yellow who are still 2 or more grade levels below. Did you want to speak any more to those? Okay. So I wanted to end the data sharing looking at this table, because one of the things that we had a challenge with using Galileo before the Iready Diagnostic was having a good comparison and understanding of how students were doing and how they would perform on their state assessments. So this breaks it down so you can see what Galileo predicted versus what we actually scored on the state test. And if you look at the bottom, so our district, you can see this on our state test for ELA, we had 29% of our students who were proficient. Galileo predicted 27%. Or sorry, what did I say? I already predicted 27%, and we actually scored 29%. So it was only 2% off. And in math, we had 20% of our students proficient. I already predicted 17%. So it was 3% off. And there's several reasons why math oftentimes can be more volatile. Students often struggle more with consistent performances in math versus in reading and writing. And it also just oftentimes takes more time and energy, which at the end of the school year can be in short supply. But still, those are good correlations that we have. These are what are called soft correlations, where it's just percentages. I do have a statistical software program now where I will be running the actual correlations to see, as well as we've entered into an agreement, thank you for agreeing to it, to do a study with Iready so that we can get better correlations between the diagnostics and the state assessments. All right, so some quick takeaways. Our progress and our rate of improvement from 2021 to 2022 has done very well. We want to keep up about that 10% increase, as well as reducing our minimally proficient students on our state test by at least 15%. And getting, again, as many students as possible onto our grade level, flipping that pyramid so that we have our green, right, is the majority of our students instead of the red, which is what we have at this point. The second little icon there, that was supposed to be an icon around equity, right? And one of the important reasons why we want to use our data is to ensure that we understand who has the greatest needs, what those are, and what we need to do to meet them. And the last one is just that focus on math and making sure that we can help our students who have fallen far behind in their math. And I'm going to actually turn this last slide over because the brainchild of this is the great lady next to me, so she can share about our onward and upward strategies.
So our onward and upward strategies, you know, I'm all about a theory of action. And so when we think about our theory of action, our goals are that this year we really want to increase implementation of the instructional cycles. And so what that means is that we're using our common formative assessments to guide what we're doing in our classrooms on a weekly basis, and that we're gathering that data so we can target specific needs of students. We also then want to make sure that as we're doing that, we're providing the support to teachers. So we've got over 140 teachers and administrators across the district being trained in letters, which is going to help build that core reading foundation for so many of our students. And then the other is increasing the numbers of teachers who get their SEI, the Sheltered English Immersion certifications or endorsements. I shared recently in a board update that our language acquisition coordinator, Marilu Gonzalez, has created an online SEI certification module that teachers can work on their own to get this certification. And we know that it's really critically important in helping students who are second language, but also students who are struggling in general. The teaching strategies in this module really help to show gains in performance. So that's a targeted area that we want to have. The strategies that we're using in our classrooms, we talked about the classroom protocol for look-fors when we go into classrooms, really creating these inviting, high rigor classrooms where students are seen and heard and invited to be active, challenging learners, not challenging in the way that they're pushing teachers' buttons, but challenging in the way that they're asking great questions and engaging in what they're learning. We also want to continue using our master teachers and our learning acceleration specialists so that we can provide fresh support to our teachers side by side as they're learning some strategies to help do that. And then, of course, continue to provide support at the school level through our school support teams, our data talks with principals, our monitoring of classrooms on an ongoing basis. We know that we can't just put this out there and walk away. We have to be walking into classrooms on an ongoing basis. We have to be working closely with our principals to making sure that they have what they need, and with our teachers to make sure that they have what they need, so that we can continue to see not only the gains that we saw last year, because as Dr. Lloyd has said, we want to see 10% more this year and 15% lower minimally proficient at the end of this year. So that concludes our presentation. Thank you.
I have one more question, maybe just one more. Can you remind me how are students receiving ESS services and EL services, how their AASA scores are put into the averages? Like, are they all included? Okay, so not all of our schools have the same number of students who receive those services, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so data that shows that would be
Yeah,
really
yeah, you
helpful.
asked for the breakdown by school.
Yeah,
And yeah, and when we do that, I'll be able to give you the numbers
Okay.
along with the percentages
Yeah.
so that you can see. Yeah, because Bethune last year had, I think, at least a quarter of their students who
Okay.
received English language services, whereas
Okay.
you have other schools that
and
have
then,
much less.
so I want to compare apples to apples, and I know that that's not necessarily feasible, but also I need a more apples to apples comparison. And it's very, very hard for me to keep looking at this data with Shaw and Magnet and not just upfront be like, well, this is why their data is so very different. It feels like an elephant in the room to me, and I just need, so I don't know how we do that for another presentation, but maybe it is showing that breakdown that includes those students, and a reminder that that data is embedded in all of these percentages as well.
So for clarification, are you asking to see the free and reduced lunch statistics embedded in that data? to be-
Probably all of the things that you think are, yes, all of those things.
Dr. Vink, we'll have an opportunity to look at the different student populations, and then we'll bring it to our board members, whether it be in an update and or a presentation, depending on how we get all of this sorted out. I agree with you. I think we need to continue to really shed light on what are some of those challenges, but also what are we doing to support our populations that need more support. I look at the EL population and I see that we have 474 students, which 85% are minimally proficient. We know that that's going to be the case because they're getting better at acquiring language proficiency, but we can also look at scores such as our ACELA to see how they are showing that growth in the areas of focus, which is that language piece. So give us a little bit of time. We'll get a little bit more. These are areas that really excite me because it really tells that kid by kid, skill by skill story. And I know that our principals are just as eager as we are to better understand what's at our schools today and how we can support that growth. But I love the question. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I will say the diagnostic, one of the things, again, calculating growth based on the diagnostic, those students oftentimes will have very good growth on the diagnostic, again, because it's measuring wherever they started and their ending point versus our state level assessments only measure how they're doing on the standards base. So that is something we can provide as well. So you can see how did they do, if they're able to grow, at a certain rate, how does that compare to other students? Because the diagnostic does give us that information. It's a lot harder to calculate that using the state data.
Okay, thank you.
I want to thank you, Dr. Gonzalez and your team by providing this information. It's all very useful and helpful to us, something that we've been asking for. And I'm sad that Dr. Diaz isn't here to join us because I know she would totally appreciate this as well. But I just wanted to, again, I really appreciate that goal of increasing our 10% and decreasing the 15%. And I kind of want to really leverage our position with the family engagement specialist. And maybe we can, Dr. Gonzalez, you and I and the rest of your team can really explore, like, what does it mean to provide like a parent university where we're teaching our parents. It's great that the kids are doing great in their classrooms and the curriculum, but there's these testings that are very important to their learning, to our district. And there's just some opportunity there that we can really use with our parents of educating them to fill in those blanks and kind of work with them of explaining like what is all this like education and curriculum talk. But I just really want to thank you for striving to hit those goals, because we're right on board of making sure that we're always going to be providing an excellent education here. So thank you.
I'll just end with thanking the board. I spent a few hours looking at other boards, board docs, and data presentations, and I'm really excited that you guys actually like looking at the numbers. It was really interesting how many just saw maybe some tables and maybe like one illustration. So I'm really excited to get to present what I got to present to you. Dr. Diaz.
Hi, sorry I am joining late. I did get the tail end of the presentation, and you know, from looking at some of the trends, it does look like we are progressing in a positive direction. Excited to hear more about raising the bar. As I've said many times, you know, it's great to have our goals, realistic goals, but I definitely am one for advocating for those aspirational goals, because, you know, even if it's a North Star, it serves as a North Star, even though it might seem unattainable at the time. We're constantly striving for excellence. So also, thank you, Board Member Bueno, for recognizing this would be a presentation that I love, because I love data and I love talking about it. So thank you.
Thank you all very, very much. It's one of my favorite things about our board and our leadership is hearing how interested we are in getting to know our population, because that is a great example of a good leader, is knowing the people that you serve. So thank you very much. With that, we will move on to G1 with Mr. Quintana regarding our COVID numbers. Good evening.
Good evening, governing board members, district colleagues, and community listening or watching the meeting. Want to provide the board an update on the community level regarding the COVID data that comes from the Maricopa County Health Department. Thank you. This slide just shows the different recommendations that the county makes regarding, depending on where we're sitting at the community level, which I'm going to show next here. So as a district, the county does a good job of taking basically within our district and reporting the community level. And at this point, it's showing that on a cases per 100,000 people, it's at 329 cases per 100,000. And also the percent positivity is at 29%, which if you look at those numbers combined, we are sitting at a high community level. And then if we break it down by zip codes, and these are the zip codes that where our schools are situated at. And we compare the community level, which they're all right now at a high, except for the 85034, that's at a medium. And the cases per 100,000, you know, they range anywhere from 138 for the medium to above 400. And then we also get the positivity rate by district. By school and the zip codes. Unfortunately, there's some districts and zip codes that they don't provide the information on. But if you look at that, they also range in the high 20s and up to 45. So as a community and the county, along with the district level and in each specific school, we are sitting for the most part at a high community level. And that's something we also keep an eye on in light of also that we began our schools again classes last week. And so there's something that we're keeping an eye on a consistent basis, and we can adjust our protocols according to the results.
I'm sorry, quick question. Why is this data from July 20th?
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what? That's only because it should be from August 3rd.
Okay.
Thank you, Ms. Bueno. I was wondering as well, because I do know or read that we change levels as far as the county is concerned. So I thought you might be getting to that. So I was wondering as well what the data, why the data was, I guess, so much older than I assumed it would be.
Yeah. No, there's a most recent data, and the county updates information every Tuesday. So we can look at this every Tuesday. So basically that's the presentation. If there's no other questions. That's it.
Thank you very much, Mr. Quintana. And just to reiterate, I do believe, I saw it either on the Maricopa County website or the CDC that we did go down, is it to a medium level? Perfect. Just a few days ago. So some slightly good news, but still we'll have more updated information. With that, we'll move on to item. I don't believe we have anything for item H1, so we'll move on to item I1. Any board reports or requests from the team?
I do, and it could be a future agenda item, but just as I continue to advocate and what we've heard from some community comments from today, there's just I know we had a wonderful presentation on our budget and just going over the recently passed budget. Thank you to those comments who kind of broke down the historic funding for public education that was passed. I think that needs to come from us too, just to be transparent with their community of what's happening at the state level with the budget. And those are also questions that were asked from even making the correlation when we did the bus depot. Our staff was asking those questions too. So I think it'd be great just to break that down and inform them, especially with the breakdown of what Phoenix Elementary's disbursement is. And again, we're informed tonight, but I would also like that coming from district. And then also a review of what options are recommended options for how we can continue to strengthen the financial stability of the people who come in and serve our community by working for this district. And I think that is from top down, down up, looking at salary increases to continue to be competitive with other schools, public and charter, that have already been on top of that post budget passed. And so I think just in keeping our staff here too is them knowing that we're focused on that, and that is something that is going to be on the next agenda when it's ready. And then in addition with that budget is continuing to decrease those numbers of students on the after school wait list. I know that we're doing a great job, but I think it ties a lot into maybe what is viable with the recently passed budget and how we can support before and after school programs like Peer, and getting an update on what solutions we have implemented to address. I know we've been on the ball about that too. I know we can do more. I think we have not communicated that to our community. I think we can do so at this next meeting, see what we're doing to, again, just decrease those numbers on the wait list to support our students and families that need to have their children in those after school programs because of work or because of whatever it may be, even for non-working families. And so thinking that's it. It might be a study session, but yeah, those are my two top requests to include before and after school funding when we look at budget recommendations for salary. And I think two is salary and stipend options for those who work for before and after school programs here at Phoenix L. Thank you. And then one more. And going with board member Bueno, Vice President Bueno stated with parents, just an update on our Parent Educator Academy and partnership with Online Education. I would like to get a status update, a board update on the status of that program and seeing what impact that is having with the parent cohort that is included with the Parent Educator Academy. Thank you.
I just have one. I was just hoping for someone to provide an update or even remind me where to find it if I've already been told. If we've hired a consultant to do our compensation study yet and when that's happening.
We'll provide that for you. We have updates. Thank you.
I think I would, not the most articulate person, but echoing Mr. Carrillo's request for more transparency about spending, I do think a study session would be in order for us to fully understand this extra funding coming in, to be able to make data-driven, educated decisions about it. If that's what's coming up in our next few agendas, hearing that other districts are already making movement toward that kind of goal. So that's my only request is, I think a whole study session would be helpful regarding the extra funds approved.
I would like to request a schedule of when meet and confer will begin.
Thank you all. Any further requests? Hearing none, we'll move on to future agenda.
President
items.
Trujillo, I do just to add to the,
Okay.
sorry.
No worries.
Just to add to the meet and confer for PECTA is also, to add to that is a meet and confer for ESPA too, when to include them.
I'm really excited to hear you say that because I definitely made a nice big note when you made your board report earlier. So thank you very much. I do value us working toward that goal because ESPA is a very important voice and we don't know why we haven't heard from them more often. And I just want to bring that back to the table no matter what. So thank you. Now on to future agenda items. Do we have any to record? All right, hearing none, we can move on to adjournment. Do we have a motion to adjourn our meeting this evening?
Jessica Bueno, so moved.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Reggie Carrillo, a second.
Thank you. Ms. Miriam, may we please have a roll call vote to adjourn our meeting?
Carmen Trujillo,
Aye.
Jessica Bueno,
Aye.
Reggie Carrillo,
Aye.
Alicia Vink,
Aye.
Laura Diaz.
Aye.
Thank you very much. With that, we will adjourn at 6:55 PM. Thank you all for joining us for our earlier meeting this evening. Our next I know, I totally went blank. Our next meeting is scheduled for August 23rd at 5:15 PM, which again is a Tuesday. So we'll see you in a few weeks. Thank you.